Welcome to the Programming Electronics Academy podcast. Join us every other week as we explore how everyday people are creating extraordinary things in the world. Find us online at programmingelectronics.com.
Hello, I hope you're doing fantastic. Thank you so much for joining me. Well, this is Michael with Programming Electronics Academy, and this is our podcast. So why are we launching a podcast? What gives? Well, as far as technology goes, I really believe that we are living in exciting times. And here we are right in the thick of this technological and information revolution. And I just want to be a part of it. I want to be a contributing member of what's going on. And I hope you do too. Now, I also believe in the power of story, especially people's stories, like their ups and downs, their adventures. And what I want to do is to tap into the power of people's personal stories about people who are building things using technology. And I want to learn about what inspires them, kind of what their challenges are, what their success is, because those type of things generally inspire me. They kind of light my fire, so to say, and I hope they're going to light your fire too. So that's why I'm launching this podcast. So how's this going to work? What are we going to do? Well, for starters, we're going to be releasing a show every other week on Mondays. So you can subscribe on iTunes and expect our show to be ready to go every Monday morning. So if you know anything about me or Programming Electronics Academy, then you know that we're really into Arduino and prototyping, microcontrollers, that type of stuff. So the first couple guests we're going to have on, that's going to be the focus. From there, I'm kind of excited to see where it goes. Now, if you think Arduino is the name of a sub sandwich or you have no idea what a microcontroller is, don't sweat it. I'm going to do my very best to explain things as we go, try to avoid all this jargon and technical speak. In today's episode, I had the pleasure of speaking with Dan Massey about his project, the Hover Disk. We talk about the inspiration for this project, which interestingly enough includes a Segway and a fire. We talk about the tools he uses to build it, some of the challenges he had along the way, and some other projects that he's been working on. Now, Dan's also an educator in primary school. We talk a little bit about integrating microcontrollers, Arduino into the classroom, technology into the classroom, 3D printing into the classroom, all kind of interesting stuff. And so, if you're an educator out there or you're thinking about bringing this to a classroom, this might be a really helpful episode for you. He's got some great advice. All right, without further ado, here we go. Here's the show. Okay, hey, Dan, thank you so much for taking the time to come and talk. I appreciate it.
You're very welcome.
So we met through Programming Electronics Academy, and I was lucky enough to have you send your project and kind of show the project that you were working on, the Hover Disk, and I thought, man, that is such a cool project. I really wanted to learn more about it, and the video you made, which we'll make sure to link to, is so well done, I thought. Just to kind of show it off and stuff, so it really piqued my interest, and a lot of people's interest, I'm sure. But I guess before we start talking about the Hover Disk that you built, I'm a little curious about your background and like how you got into electronics or making projects and that type of stuff.
Sure, thanks. Yeah, the Hover Disk is one of my projects. I've got a couple other little ones here I'd like to show you too. But I started off old school, where if I wanted to make something, I'd have to design it in a Word program or something, and I'd draw the circuit board patterns. This is back in early high school, even elementary school. I started building electronic projects. I was one of those guys that would always bring something for show and tell every day. I was a maker back then, and we didn't know what a maker was, right? I would just make things all the time. So I would like hardwire things together, and then after a while I learned how to make circuit boards. So I would design a circuit board that would do something like blink a LED or turn on a motor or something like that. So it was very, very specific, right? And then, I've been waiting for something like an Arduino to come along, because now you just change your programming and it can do all sorts of things, right? You've got that one board that can do all of that. And so that was very, very exciting for me. So I'm pretty good at building circuits and doing all the mechanical parts of it, but I know nothing about programming. So that really threw me. I know I can use this. I'm going to have fun doing it, but now I got to learn how to program, which was like a killer for me because I never had any background. I've never actually taken any courses in electronics or robotics or things like that. So I just read a lot. I watch YouTube clips. Programming Electronics Academy has helped me with the programming. So, that's kind of where I've been coming from. And I'm a school teacher, so I try and incorporate everything that I've been learning at home, all my hobbies, into my science and math curriculum. So that's what my kids are doing in school now too.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah, I definitely, at some point I'd like to get back and talk to you a little bit about that, how you're kind of integrating it to the classroom, because I'm sure there's going to be other educators out there listening, and they might just be kind of curious about how you're, some ways you're doing it and stuff. But would you mind kind of describing verbally for those listening, kind of like what the hover disk looks like?
Sure. My hover disk is just, it was a brainchild of mine. I had some spare parts. It actually came from, I built a Segway out of a wheelchair, electric wheelchair motors. And for the viewers, never ever do what I did. My very first project was a Segway, and I've never used an Arduino. I've never programmed before, but I wanted to build a Segway. I really wanted to do that. So I found a book, John Warren's book on Arduino projects. So, and in there was a Segway, right? A Segbot. So I built the whole thing. The building part was easy for me. The programming part killed me. So back and forth, I emailed him and he helped me with coding, and finally got it to work, and it was working really well. I used it at school, and I was riding up and down the halls getting my mail and my photocopying done. But accidentally, I left it charging in my classroom, and some kids had knocked over some of the wiring, and it lit on fire, and the whole thing went up in smoke. And so that was devastating. So I had this burnt out Segway, and I took it home, and I didn't really feel like rebuilding it. And so just the other year, I thought, let's try and make something else out of it. I used to watch these floats in the Disney parades, and people would stand on them and ride on them. And there were these little mini discs that would spin around. So I thought I'd build something, and I just called it a hover disc because it kind of looks like it hovers, but it really doesn't. It's off the ground about half an inch, but there's wheels underneath that you can't see. And there's a LED light strip that goes all the way around that lights up, so it even looks more like it's hovering. And it's got some sound effects. It's got 2 Arduinos in there that operate the unit. I could probably do it with one, but my programming is limited, so I use 2. I said, I'm just going to use one Arduino for all the sound effects and lights, and I'm going to use one to power all the send signals to all the 2 motors. So you stand on it, and when I turn it on, it lights up. It's got sound effects, and I can drive it around. And when I power down, it just shuts off. And the remote is 3D printed, but I took a Wii joystick. I've got an XB sideways here, and then a battery compartment here. And then I had to learn, okay, how do I connect an XB to an Arduino? So I've got an XB here, I've got an XB on the machine, and then the XB sends signals to the Arduino, and there you go.
That is awesome. What were some of the biggest challenges you had when you were building it?
Well, building the unit itself was pretty easy. I designed it all right. There's just 2 big tires, and then I had to, like, they're lawnmower wheels, and I had to have them just the right. It was all measurements, right, to get it just the right width. I wanted to have it as narrow or short as possible, but then it could still withstand somebody standing on it. And then the hardest part for me was the programming, because I had to have it so that when I turned on the switch, it would power up. But the power up sound wouldn't keep on happening, over and over. It wouldn't keep cycling. I'd just do it one time until I shut it down. And it's been a little while, but there was a lot of issues around that. And I still don't know how I did it. I had help from you too. You gave me some suggestions online, and I used those, and it worked. But I'm still not sure of it. It just kind of works. It's magic.
It's nice when it can come together like that.
Right, yeah.
I know you had some other shields in there too inside of the machine. What were those shields that you're using?
Thanks. I had a Saber tooth motor controller. They're awesome little devices. It's a unit. It's about as big as an Arduino, and it just powers the motors. There's multiple ways you can operate them. There's lots of documentation online. They have a good website where you should just how to wire them up. You can use it directly with wires where you have 2 joysticks or 1 joystick, like tank style, and you can operate heavy duty motors off of it. And so powering it up with an Arduino, just sending signals to it, serial signals or whatever you want, will make it go forward, back, left, and right. It's a little bit jumpy. I think I could probably clean it by filtering it out a little bit more, but it works for the most part. And it worked for my Segway too. So anytime you want to power heavy-duty motors like that, like lawnmower wheels, most people are using a Saber tooth motor controller.
Okay, that's cool. So all you have to do, you send a signal from the Arduino to this,
Yep.
and then it's just doing a power output for the wheels
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. It's got little dip switches, so you can tell it whether you're using a transmitter, like a radio control transmitter, or whether you're hardwiring it into a microcontroller, or you're hardwiring it in with potentiometers, whatever you want to use.
That's cool. And from the pictures I saw that you'd put online about the project, and also I just mentioned, and we'll make sure to link to it also in the show notes, but you did a pretty cool Instructable on this project too for people who want to make this build also. But
Right.
It seemed like that if I'm thinking about what I thought was the Sabertooth controller, it seems like
Yes.
a pretty heavy duty chunk of stuff. Is that
It is.
okay?
Yeah, it withstands a lot. I actually put a cooling fan on it just from a computer power supply, just to cool it, so that turns on at the same time, just in case it overheats. But I've never had them really get too hot.
And what did you use? Did you have a shield also for the noise? Did you say, or for the music?
Mhm.
Did you say you had one?
Yes, that's an Adafruit sound effects board,
Okay.
and you can get them with or without an amp built in. So I just bought one with an amp, and it's got about 10 memory slots or 10 little switches, or you can connect spots where you can connect switches to. So you can trigger it with a low input. So every time one of those sees a low, it'll trigger that particular sound effect. So I only have 2 or 3 sound effects in there, but it could take a lot more.
Oh wow, that's cool.
Yeah, and then I just have it powered up to 2 speakers underneath.
Does it accept like an SD card? Is that how you get the sound effects on there? Or?
No, you download them as little files.
Oh, that's cool. Right onto the shield then. All right.
Yeah, right onto that little thing.
Was it relatively easy to use, or?
Very easy. Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
nice.
there's good documentation from Adafruit for that too.
Yeah, I find it seems like Adafruit, and it's Adafruit Industries. If somebody's listening and they don't know, we'll make sure to link to them too. But they always have great documentation on their website. It's very impressive.
Yeah.
So you said you kind of integrate this stuff into the classroom.
Yeah.
So are you bringing Arduinos into the classroom, or just like electronics type stuff, or?
Yeah. So after getting excited about Arduinos, I just went full bore with all of this, and I thought, I teach an enrichment class at the school too, and the kids, they're just, most of the time people are learning about electronics and how to light a light bulb and make a motor go, but I think, with our generation, we're beyond that, and we can get into coding and building things with these Arduinos and servos and LEDs. And so I bought a class set, like kits, where you've got a breadboard, you've got an Arduino, you've got a servo and a motor and a whole bunch of LEDs and some spare parts. And from there, I have them doing all the basics, like blink an LED, turn on a servo, have it sweep, those kinds of things. And I'm also teaching 3D printing as well. So now I'm interfacing the two, and we're saying, okay, what can we do with servos and 3D printing? I want you to make an automaton or something like that moves, some kind of display, so I can see your coding, you're building electronic, stuff with circuit boards, and you're 3D printing at the same time. So that's kind of, what I'm doing with all of these guys.
Oh, that's fantastic. I don't remember having you as a teacher when I was in high school. I had some great teachers, but that's really
I wish
neat.
I had myself as a teacher. No, it's come a long way, so just a little bit at a time.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to get the other teachers involved too, because, they're interested, but there's a huge learning curve too, right?
Yeah, and I think it's okay if it takes time. Like you said, just a little bit at a time. It does eventually come along. So what age are these kids, out of curiosity?
They are 12 to 15.
Okay.
The ones that I teach.
And well, that's really neat. So you have them there, like multiple days during the week, or is it just like one day a week type of thing?
Yeah. So my enrichment class, I teach 2 days a week. We do a lot of robotics, and we do some competitions in our area here too. But with my math and science, I have them every day. And just this year, I thought I'm going to take on the challenge of having everybody use these kits and see where I can go with it. Because you never know, who you're going to affect, and it could change lives, right? I've had people come back from high school that I taught and said, you know what, after learning coding, I found out I'm really good at it. So I want to do that as a job now. And, I really, really like 3D printing, and I didn't know I could do that as a career. So, that's where it's leading. So I'm trying it out with all of my grade 7s, which are around 12, 13 years old. And just to see how it goes this year. But they're super excited. You never have to say, hey, you got to start your project or get that assignment in. They're always asking for more and more and more. They're always waiting for that time where we can pull out the laptops and start using the 3D software to generate all these things.
So if there was a teacher out there in a position and they're kind of like, thinking about it, they want to jump in and they want to kind of bring this into their classroom, is there any advice you would give them, to take on the endeavor? Any thoughts you have about how they might, what might best serve the students?
Yep. One bite at a time. So 1 year, a couple of years, you might just want, if you are interested in 3D printing, to, get a couple simple printers and just start in on that with, a class here and there. If you want to do electronics and programming, then get into programming these things a lot so the coding really well, but don't do what I did where you want to build the greatest project ever and you don't know what you're doing, right? So start with the basics. So what I actually did is I created a manual for middle school. There are about 15 lessons step by step in middle school language for the kids on how to make projects from basics, from blinking LED all the way up to, driving servos and figuring out their angles and all of that. So make up some mini tutorials for them because your kid's the best, and what they'll understand. Just to go on the internet would be hard for them. So I would say spend some time generating buy a few Arduino kits and just go from there. That's all I did.
I think that's great. That's very sound advice. So what are your plans for the future? What are you thinking about? Do you have like the next project in mind, or do you have like the next 20 projects in mind?
Yeah, I'm one of those guys that I'm never still. I'm always moving. So believe it or not, I have 1 more year left before I retire. So I'm trying to fit some more things in. But when I retire, then I can maybe go around and do some workshops around our school district just to motivate teachers and teach them how to do this kind of stuff. But for my personal use, I love, like when I went to Disney when I was a kid, that's what sparked it all. I love animatronics, and I've just been waiting until the technology was there that I could use, and now it's there, right? You can go to Adafruit, you can do Programming Electronics Academy, you can learn all this stuff at home and order things online, which we never could do before. And now you could build amazing things that, was never possible before. So I've got so many different ideas just in my brain that I want to do, but time, right?
Yeah, no, I hear you. Yeah, it's definitely an exciting time to be alive. I agree. It's just,
yeah.
I remember, I just, think of like movies I watched as a kid and thinking, oh man, that would be so cool. That'd be so neat. And now I'm like, wow, I could actually go out and do XYZ that I saw in that movie as a kid. That's pretty neat.
I know,
amazing.
It's amazing. Yeah.
And all for relatively affordable prices. It just blows my mind how inexpensive a lot of the electronics are.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, hey, Dan, this has been fantastic. Thanks so much for taking the time to talk. I really appreciate it. And I know people are going to enjoy kind of hearing your story and what you've been up to. It's neat.
Thank you. I really appreciate the time that you spent with me and the opportunity to share some of my projects. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Well, I hope you enjoyed the show with Dan. You may have picked up on the fact that Dan and I talked quite a bit about documentation and how helpful it can be to have good documentation. If you're wondering what documentation is, it's kind of like a user manual for a tool. So a lot of people make really nice tools, either hardware tools or software tools, but they don't necessarily describe how to use those tools really well. And so when somebody has made a great tool, and then they've provided great documentation. Wow, that goes for a great combo. I'll make sure to link to all the stuff we talked about in the show notes, which you can check out at programmingelectronics.com. If you enjoyed the show, I welcome you to subscribe in iTunes. Again, we'll be delivering a new episode every other week on Monday. And if you could take the time to go into iTunes and rate and review our podcast, I would really appreciate that. All right, until next time, I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day, rest of your night, rest of your whatever, and I look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Have a good one. Bye.
This show is produced by Programming Electronics Academy, an online technology education company. We exist to help you create the technology you want in your life. If you are interested in learning more about Arduino, we welcome you to sign up for our free Arduino Crash Course, a 12-part video series with accompanying written lessons designed to teach the basics of programming Arduino. To register for the course, simply text your email address to 440-701-5311, or you can visit programmingelectronics.com and sign up there.